Well, hi, David. After a busy few
Alan.
weeks, it's good to have that opportunity to chat again. During our last discussion, you introduced why sales capability is important to any organization, drawing from your own experience and insights from a career of working with sales and account management teams. And you specifically mentioned the link between infrastructure and the ability to actually perform as an effective sales function. So we said we'd get back together again and pick up on one of the key elements of the sales infrastructure, and that is having a sales and account management capability framework in place to underpin your business. So to maybe just kick the discussion off, as someone who's had responsibility for managing a large team of sales and account managers, why was having a set of clearly defined capabilities important to you?
It was really important, Alan, because for me, it was about the fundamentals and getting those right. Setting a standard for I guess what good looks like.
Mhm.
I think it's important to be really clear to everyone about the knowledge, skills, practices, and behaviours that are expected from a capable sales and account manager in order to be successful. So having something in place makes sure everyone's on the same page. And if you've got a tiered framework, then that also enables a lifting of standards across a whole team. Um, it's worth noting, to keep things pragmatic and not overly complicated. So, at least to start with, focus the number of capabilities on the areas that you see as crucial to success. So, for example, at a high level, this might include areas like influence, negotiation, building long-term relationships, and so on. And again, to keep it manageable, I would suggest a maximum of 3 tiers or levels of expected competency that make it clear what's expected at foundation, and then intermediate, and then expert level. Um, and I guess to sum up, sales and account management practices have changed a lot in the last 30, 20, or even 10 years. But what hasn't changed for me is the importance of having a deep understanding of your customer and their needs. And a good framework helps people be more effective at developing that.
Yeah, thanks, David. That's a couple of really great examples there of why that's important to kick our discussion off. And I particularly like the point you made about this being useful for everyone and helping to lift standards across the whole team. Are there any other examples of what else a good sales capability framework can enable or support?
Yeah, I think the key one is learning, personal growth, and development, and then the consequent uptick that you get in result, or that you can get in result from raising standards. So I mentioned intermediate and expert a moment ago, and I recall that one business I worked for introduced a framework along those lines. It was amazing the response they got from people who all of a sudden had a much clearer progression path, and when overnight it became clear what they needed to do to achieve that progression. Now, the increased rewards available might have had something to do with it also, but the point is, without the framework, none of that would have been possible. Um, and I should add that the business results improved pretty significantly as well because of that approach. And given how straightforward it was to develop, I recall that business wondering in the end why they hadn't done it years before, which is quite interesting. Um, Also, I think given the current focus on retention and recruitment for many businesses, and a scarcity of talent, um, using a framework to provide a structured development map, with training and development solutions to match, is a great way to keep developing people so they are motivated to stay with you. And then again, when you're recruiting, it can be really helpful to use the framework and the desired level of capability to input into your recruitment tools.
Brilliant. Again, some really great additional points, David. Thank you. And importantly, what you mentioned, that it does lead to people feeling valued due to having a view of sort of like a progression pathway, and then really importantly, the link to improved business results. And building a sales and account management capability framework from scratch can maybe seem a bit daunting, but what you've outlined of keeping it simple and pragmatic should maybe help put people's minds at rest if this doesn't already exist within their business. So, and as you've mentioned, it's certainly worthwhile doing given the benefits that it can bring. But maybe as a last question, once developed, is that it? Is it a once and done activity?
Maybe once upon a time, Alan, but like I said, things change so fast now, nothing is forever, I guess. I suppose a different way to look at the question is how often might it be reviewed? And the answer to that is it depends. Now, that might sound like a politician's answer, but what I really mean by that is it depends on what's happening around you in your market, what's happening with your customers, with your competition, and with wider economic conditions. So For example, to bring in recent times, the pandemic has led to many more relationships and negotiations having to be conducted virtually, like we're doing now.
Yep.
And this requires different capabilities, of course, than doing it face to face. So a capability might need to be added or updated on your framework to reflect the what and the how related to doing things virtually instead of the old-fashioned way. Reviewing it also, I think, depends on how often you review your own business strategy. So your sales and account management approach should, without question, align with your business strategy. So ideally, they should be as up to date as each other. And last, but probably most importantly for me, it depends on how you're performing as a business. For a business that's underperforming, I'd expect the approach to be reviewed more often as we search for answers. But equally, successful businesses can't afford to be complacent, excuse me, or they may lose what competitive advantage they hold. So for sure, it pays to keep your customer strategy up to date.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thanks, David. That's a really excellent overview of the value, that sales and account management capability framework can bring to any organization. And it's certainly an area where we at Customers Tuned have helped a number of clients over the years across different industry sectors. And obviously, we'd be delighted to hear from anyone who needs a bit of help or advice in this area. I just wonder, it'd be good if we could maybe have a follow-up session to discuss how you've seen a capability framework being used to help identify development needs, and then some of the corresponding solutions that were put in place to address these needs. Would that make sense as being a topic for our next discussion?
Yeah, I think, well, since we've started a series of these conversations, Alan, it makes sense to continue. So yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. All right, well, I look forward to getting that one done. Maybe try and get that done before Christmas if we can. Fantastic. Thanks,
Cool.
David.
Thanks,
See you
Alan.
soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.